Welcome to the Transformations Podcast. Here, guests and I will share our transformative experiences and will explore how to find excellence in life. Author, manifestation coach, actress, and changemaker, Lily Sanders. Welcome to Transformations.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here.
It's so great to see you again. It's been so long, too many years.
I know.
I still treasure my autographed copy of Truth to Triumph.
Yay.
Not
It's so
everybody
funny.
can have one signed by the author.
This is true. Actually, yeah. Actually, if you buy it through my website, you can.
Okay.
And now all the books have an award on it because it was awarded after you got it really in the
Very
beginning.
early.
And then I had the New York City Big Books Award.
Oh,
It
wow.
was awarded for personal growth category. So yeah,
Wonderful.
pretty
Wonderful.
cool.
So what is the website that people can go to purchase a signed copy?
lilysanders.live. So it's
Okay,
my name, LILYSANDERS.LIVE.
great. Now, you look so young and vibrant and full of light and energy, but you've come through some struggles, right? I mean, just to read through this book, at times it's so uplifting and at times it just like breaks your heart, and then you turn it to an uplifting.
Yeah, I have been through my struggles, and many people have. I think that the difference, though, Mike, is what we really do with those struggles and how we navigate through these life situations and how we really use them to leverage us to expand in our lives, really, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, even physically. There's a lot of areas of growth. It's not just emotional growth. It's not just spiritual growth, but physically also, they all do work together. So yeah, I have been through some tough situations. And it's funny you say that because people that knew me like early on in life, they read Truth to Triumph and said, wow, I didn't even know.
Right.
Or they would read it and say, I'm really getting pissed off when I read this book, which is so sweet. I mean, I get it. Yeah, it can be a tough read, but it is inspirational. And there is, I do give people a reason and a way on how they can really catapult to really manifesting something good out of everything.
Yeah. It seems that you turn everything into a moment of acceptance and love.
Yes, 100%.
Right.
It's really interesting because, if you read my book and if you work with me, even as a client, coaching, my approach is very much present coaching in the moment. However, people don't crumble in a day. And what I mean by that is we can't really ignore the past. We can't live in that story, but we do need to be aware of what we've experienced. We do need to be aware of those things that we're even not consciously aware of, that's resonating and stuck almost on like the bottom of the pot, right? That maybe 30 years later, 40 years later, 50 years later, something stirs it in any kind of situation. And so as long as we're not living in that story, but we do need to be aware that something might be there. And then from this present moment, how do we navigate through that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's like I saw a meme on Facebook or somewhere and it said the past is a lesson, not a life sentence.
Yeah.
Right? Like don't hold on so much to the past.
Yeah.
Just learn from
Yeah.
it.
Right. And the reason why it can be a lesson, but it can also really carve out someone's excuse to really have their future turn to, quite frankly, turn to garbage, right? And then it's even harder to kind of stop, put on the brakes, and figure out now what. And then again, constantly blame. But when we, you mentioned that my book is all a lot about love and acceptance, and it really is when we're working or talking to one of our loved ones, or even a stranger, or just an acquaintance. We really do have to start remembering that people don't crumble in a day, and we really need to love them, because everyone does have a story. They did have a situation. And so we just need to love them and accept that, in whatever way that is. I'm not saying let people step on you, but I'm saying love them. We can love from a distance instead of judging, lashing back, talking about, not offering help, where you think maybe you should have done that. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
It makes perfect sense. Yeah. It's so easy to, especially today, and our world is full of wars and political battles and hate speech and all these things, and so easy just to think of the other as an enemy and not think about, what is it that brought them to their feelings or their actions. And they're fighting on their side for them what they think is right just as much as we are, but it's so easy to say they're wrong, and you would
Yeah,
hate them, not love them.
right. It's a perfect example. And the saying, no one's ever walked, a mile in anyone else's shoes. Totally true. And but on the other hand, if you haven't, you need to realize that everyone is walking their own mile. Everyone's walking their own path, and they all come from something that we're not always aware of, you know, and it's okay. It's okay if you don't understand it. I, it's interesting. It's an interesting subject, all of the hate that's going on, because there's so much love going on as well.
Right.
But we're focused on all of this. We're in the middle of a war, where we were just out of the Ukraine. Like, there's so many things going on in this time that, you know, the energy is, quite frankly, it's negative. It's hateful. It's non-forgiving. It's um, a lot of resentment, and there's a lot of people taking recourse. And I always go back to the things that I learned when I was younger. And like, even now with the war in Israel, I'm like, I keep going back to now, like World War II and everything that happened there. And when you travel, and I'm sure as a producer for yourself, you've traveled many different places in the world. And I know that I have. And I'm like, I've gone to countries where they say, well, this is the old city, like Azerbaijan, like, before the Russians came and invaded. And like, when you go to these countries, you could feel the adverse energy. It's almost like it's icky. It's the best way I could describe it. And I don't feel good about it. When I went to Germany and I went to Dachau, I felt it was disturbing. So here we are on this side of the pond. It really helps to be cognizant that there is a history, and even them being, they have to also let go of that history and that story. That's that's the whole problem. We really just, letting go is big. And I talk a lot about letting go and truth to triumph, don't I?
You do. You do. You have an interesting statement. You say pain is not your individual suffering, but we create our suffering by resisting what is.
Yes.
Can you
Yeah.
talk about that idea for a moment?
Yes. So that pain does start from our story. And that pain, let's say there was something adverse going on in your life, and you choose to really live in that story, even though it happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, goodness, even 10 minutes ago. And when you keep that wound open is by really when you're not letting that go, right? But we all have pain. It's like I say in Truth to Triumph, it's not just you. It's not just me. And when we could look at, like I was just saying, in other countries, other people's pain, like certain cultures that have, lost tens of thousands or millions, we can see that everyone has their own pain. So it's not just your burden. And I don't say this to be unkind. I actually say it to help you understand how we can have collective compassion for everyone, just in knowing that everyone has pain. But the brighter side to that is it makes you feel not alone, and it makes you really take the focus off of yourself and see that you can have compassion for someone that you don't know, in a collective way. And what happens is when you realize everyone has pain, then you could look, and in that heart of compassion, you can see that, well, why is it disturbing my life in such a way, my pain? Well, it's because you keep living that story, and now it's become suffering. There's a difference between pain and suffering. The legal system even says, oh, you're being sued for pain and suffering. It's interesting how they even separate it, because
Right.
there is a difference. You can suffer for something that happened when you were 5 years old till the day you die, whether you realize it or not, if you are still living in that story and you haven't let it go. Right? Or you can let it go, like maybe a loss. I've worked with people that have this great life, but maybe they lost their child, to a body-threatening disease when their child was young. You don't forget that. Of course not. That pain is always there. As a parent, Mike, you're a parent as well, right? It's always there. But if you're living that and you're angry about it, and you're blaming, and you're telling yourself that life was never the same, now you're suffering your entire life over something that is. We can't change something that is. It's moving forward again, back to now. Here you are in this moment. Now leverage that. Make sense?
Makes sense. I think it's hard to do for a lot of people because we create a story for ourselves as we age, right? Like as things happen to you year after year. And those things, especially the suffering, we just collect, and it's like a trophy shelf of suffering. And the life of those sufferings, of those moments, the losses, the pains, become our story. And it's just like,
Exactly.
plus the programming from our parents and our teachers and their suffering and their opinions. And it's like we're almost not even authentic in that way
It's
because
true.
yeah,
Yeah, we may think it's authentic, but it's really not. And it's so funny what you're saying. I do say that in Truth to Triumph about, like, we just kind of store things in this. I call it the mental warehouse. And it's like, if you look in a warehouse, and we know exactly what shelf it's on, what bulk end it's on, and we just pull from it every time that you choose to suffer. And we have shelves and shelves of all of these ways that we can continue to suffer in our mental warehouse, right? And yeah, I mean, and I love I love that. I never thought about that. Like it's almost in an not an authentic way. That's a great that's a great insight there, Mike.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. And
If
well,
it's not true to yourself and who you are, it's not authentic. It's what you've become really, because you've
it
become this idea of a collection of your past and what other people tell you.
what other people tell you, and
Yeah.
there's really an underlying thing in what you said as far as what you've learned from your parents. Look, you're conditioned by the world from the moment you come out of your mother's womb,
Yeah.
and it you know babies are great to study. And even if you've never had a baby, a child of your own, I would suggest that for you listeners, avail yourself to really watching silently someone with their baby, watching the baby. They're so purely conscious. Their eyes, they're are right on top of everything going on. And even if they're just focused on like mother's little finger or or dad's eyes, they're very, very ultra conscious.
Yes.
They're very present. As they get older, we all seem to uh, grow out of that innate consciousness because mom and dad and teachers and your first friend and just society in general start really putting this costume on you that you eventually start to grow out of because it really wasn't you. It was just what you've been conditioned to be expected of or be expected to become, which is why most people, when they get older, they stop and say, wait, who am I? Why am I here? What is this all about? That's why it's the universal question.
Right. That's why they say we have a midlife crisis, especially men, because women are more in touch with their feelings and emotions throughout life generally. So I
Mhm.
think for men, we have this midlife crisis, which I guess used to be 40, but I don't know. Maybe it's in his 50s, 60s. It really doesn't matter. But
Yeah,
it's that you're like, wait, who am I? Am I this stodgy guy in the office? Do I need to buy a sports car? Do I need to retire? Do I need to move to the beach? Like we're trying to figure yourself out halfway through your life. And that's a hard place to be because you've got half of your life without living truthfully, right? Yeah.
correct. It's interesting figuring yourself out. A good place to start for people that are having a difficult time figuring that out is writing down on a piece of paper who you don't want to be.
Ah,
I'm
right.
serious.
Yeah.
Who you're not. If you can't figure out, because most people when they get to that state, they're very down on themselves or they're very frustrated or they're very, very confused. Okay, if you don't know who you are, or if you don't know what good qualities that inhabit your spirit and soul and body, then maybe write down who you're not or who you don't want to be. And then you start to write down the things you are. And it's a process, but we're always becoming more and more of. That doesn't always necessarily mean we're becoming more and more of something good. Uh, I'm the first one to admit, I think I say it in my book, Truth to Triumph, is that you can be really good at manifesting something that's not serving you, just as good as you can be at manifesting something that serves you well. The process is the same, but the how do I put this? Process is the same, but the end point in your mind that connects to your heart and spirit, whether it's you want to call it intuition or God, is different. And that will determine your outcome. Will it be harmonious or will it not?
Right. I think a lot of the old books and spiritual sayings about manifestation say, you know, you manifest what you think about. It's like tuning in a radio channel, and that there's no yes or no in the universe. It's just what is. So if you're thinking uh, about failed relationships, and you say, I don't want a failed relationship, it doesn't matter because the word failed is coming through all the time. You know, it's like you just have to say relationship, relationship, and work on your feeling about a good one. Because when you say
That's correct.
when you don't want a failed one, you're saying, bring me a failed one, because the don't and want aren't really registered in that kind of vibrational state. Uh,
Yeah, that's correct. And just
so
to move that around a little bit, or just to
please.
add to that,
Hmm.
is in the time, universal timing, you already have it.
Right.
So you're not asking the universe. You're almost, I want to be kind about this, but you're almost instructing, the new paradigm is you're almost instructing the universe of what already is, because creation is already out there. It's really up to you to choose the creations that you wish to experience.
Hmm.
Yeah. So even in your manifesting, even that one thing that you want to manifest, it, in your mind, body, mind, and being, it's, you state it in the present,
Hmm.
even if you don't believe it at first.
Right.
And so to your point, you're not saying, I don't want a failing, you take all of that out of there. It's irrelevant. What's relevant is what you want, but it's even more relevant what you know you already have. And you really, that's really that big, people say, oh, well, I don't really believe that. What's trust? What's hope? To me, they're very different. And I know that's a whole nother conversation, but you know, I err on the side of trust. I don't hope for things. I trust. I trust that I have. I trust that you are well. I trust, and hope takes on a lot of different definitions. Even when I was writing Truth to Triumph, I literally took out, this is interesting. I literally took out a Bible, Mike, and uh, before writing Truth to Triumph, during, and just for a personal research in on a spiritual realm, and how I would connect that in today's world and society, and just socially. If you take the Bible written in English, as Americans as we are, right? There's different versions. Let's say King James version, or let's say like a new version, and then you get a dictionary in English, and then you get a dictionary in a Greek dictionary, and then you get a Hebrew dictionary, and you cross-reference them. Even the word hope, it's not nearly what we're conditioned to think that hope is.
Mm.
It's, you know what I'm saying? So every single word, it's like sin. Oh, what a sin. Well, sin means to miss the mark.
Right.
You know, we all sin means we all miss the mark at one point or another in our lives. We just do. But we're conditioned to believe, oh, sin, it's such a bad thing. It's almost like, you're like, oh
Yeah.
my God, and then there's people that just say it out loud, like, oh, what a sin. Like, but this is all conditioning. For me, every word goes in it's like a computer in my brain. When I started to study 3 different dictionaries, American, Greek, and Hebrew, I got to tell you, it opened up a whole different world of understanding for me.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty cool, so I wanted to share that. Of course, this is an organic conversation, so.
Of course. I love it. So let's talk about that a little bit. So the word sin means to miss the mark. So, but we are using it here as like you're going to hell or something because you've sinned against Jesus or what. I mean, we use it in such a derogatory, negative sense that has implication more than the words. Like if you the word sin. If you sin, you go to this place. And which is totally like, how about you can repent, or how about you miss the mark, you try again? I mean,
Yeah,
it's taking the actual meaning of it.
100%. Yeah. Like love thy neighbor, or love thy neighbor. Really, when you look that up, it really means, and in the old King James version is love your enemy.
Yeah.
It does mean, it means to just love everyone. Love your enemy, someone that you even maybe you're not getting that love back, right? And interestingly enough, we're also conditioned to believe, the old sayings, what you give out, you get back, right?
Right.
Yeah, sure. But sometimes people take that to a whole nother level. Well, this person doesn't do that, so I'm not, you know, I don't need that person to, it's almost like in a keeping score way.
Right. They
You know
don't
what
do
I mean?
anything for me, so why should I give them the extra peaches from the garden or what tree?
Exactly.
Why
And
should I
like,
help them shovel their driveway? The old man does nothing but give us the finger all the time, you know?
yes. And
Right.
then we do it as a society, as a
Mhm.
culture. Why are we giving money to this war when people here are starving? Like, it's all, this means love your neighbor,
You're right.
love your enemy. Look, it's not your money. It's not your food. To be honest, Mother Earth has more resources to feed the entire world. And yet there's people, there's millions of children and humans that are starving
Yeah.
in India. I mean, you got to be kidding me. It's not yours to own.
Right.
It's it really, we're all connected. And what are we going to do? Blow up the earth eventually? Like,
Right.
what?
Then when are
I
you gonna
mean,
get your peaches?
talk talk about missing the mark.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's like people to get a
Grip.
grip.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not easy, but it's simple.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
not easy for us all the time. We have those moments where we go, "Oh, this is just too much." That's
Mhm.
that's another one that I also talked about in my book, and I still say it. I would get angry when someone said, "Well, God doesn't give you more than you can handle."
Right.
What a bunch of baloney. No, that's not true, because I'm I'm really off the deep end. I can't handle this.
People have breakdowns. They have
Yes.
mental, psychological breakdowns. They need therapy. They need to go away for a while and have no more input on them because they can't handle it.
Yeah. It's why a computer crashes.
Exactly.
Same thing, people, right? And again, to circle back to the very first thing I actually said at the top of this podcast is people don't crumble in a day. You know, it's just a compilation of everything. And I don't say that in a way where, oh, some people just have bad luck. No. And to your point, what you said earlier is you know um our mind. So it's where your mind goes. It's the problem is when one thing crumbles or breaks, it's like the cookie saying, oh, that's it, it's all over for me now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of, well, what would what would really make me a really uniquely interesting and more delicious cookie with this crumble,
Right.
right?
I guess
Yeah.
I never thought about where the saying, that's how the cookie crumbles comes from. But I think now the way you're saying it, the cookie is crumbled. I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
how the cookie crumbles. But then you put it in milk and you've got, they have those cookie cereals now. And
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah,
See? And you just, so that's basically, that's how we reframe. That's my approach with reframing everything in life, whether it's career or business, relationship, in my coaching approach.
Yeah.
Reframing is huge, Mike. Wow. Wow. Like, just while we're talking about it, it's like, it really means everything. Many times, like one of my loved ones, if I hear him say something like, nothing's ever working out, or like, I can't, you can't coach your loved one. It turns into an argument, but,
Right, right.
but sometimes you can. Well, let's look at that for a moment. It's almost like everything's not working out for me. Like, almost like if you do an inflection on certain words, it kind of brings you back down to earth, where, I mean, like, you could really ground yourself and look at, well, how else can I look at this? More importantly, how else can I verbalize it and say it out loud? What we say, the mind believes. It's like, as a writer, and Mike, because, and I'm embarking on a screenplay right now, but what we write, we invite. And what we say also, the mind will know as true. So it's really like training the brain.
Hmm. So it's the speaking in absolutes that is part of the biggest problem. Like nothing ever works out. I'll
Exactly.
never get a job. Women never come on to me, or,
Yes.
whatever it is. It's people have these, they always speak in absolutes when they're just talking about one thread. It's like, yeah, some women come on to me, but not the ones I'm interested in, or not at the right time, or I can get a job, but I haven't gotten the right job yet. It's
Mm.
always an absolute of nothing and never. And you're absolutely right that you have to reframe that
Exactly. And
because
even
it
that,
doesn't serve you. Hmm.
exactly, it doesn't serve you.
Yeah.
I was even that word yet is like, you know, how about even reframing that? And so that's what I keep, like, really keep breaking down something with someone, like, well, you can't get a job, or yet, like, until you're finally at that absolute where, where you see that your job is right here and present. And then before you know it, the universe opens up many doors for you. It's really, again, it's that simple, but it's not easy.
Right, right. I was
It-
thinking of an analogy when you said this a minute ago, but I had forgotten and it just came back, is like what you're asking for is already available out there. It's already there because it's been created. You want $1 million, there's already $1 million in the system. It's just how to bring it to you. It's not like it's never existed. And I think about, and you were talking about babies and children. I thinking about, my son or daughter would, Daddy, can I have another cookie? Well, they already know the cookies are there, and if there's not a cookie, they know there's I don't know, popcorn or potato chip or apple or whatever it is. But they know a snack is already there. They're not, Daddy, one day I would love for there to be a cookie to be in the home and present itself to me, while I'm watching the cartoons. It's like, can I get my cookie? It's just like they
oh,
know how to manifest because they know stuff is already there. And they know if
yeah.
it's not the
Wow.
cookie at this moment, it's going to be some other kind of tasty treat that is the
Eh,
concept of a cookie, right?
Perfect. Two perfect analogies. The lotto, like, the millions are already
Right.
there.
Already
Perfect
there.
analogy. And then the cookie. And um even a child is even conditioned to learning how to manipulate
Oh, totally.
daddy to go take them out
Yes.
for a cookie
Or a
or ice
cookie.
cream or something, because they know the cookie's not in the jar. Well, they
But it's
learn it.
there. It's
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 there.
available
Yeah.
somewhere. How do I
Yeah.
get it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Typical the human brain, when as a child is growing, 6 months, they're pretty much already learn how to manipulate. Like, the baby wants something. Oh, if I cry,
Yeah.
I will get that. I'm talking about in a normal situation, right?
Right.
And but they learn that at 6 months, you know.
Mhm.
You ever see, like, a little, I know we're on video here, but for those of you that are listening in audio, like, you'll, again, study little babies and toddlers. If you really want to expand your self growth, like, you'll see, like, a little baby, like, taking, or like a toddler, they'll take like the cell phone and they're starting to like run with it or something, like and maybe dad is watching a baseball game or whatever, and the toddler wants attention, right? Oh yeah, you could take anything you want, as your bed in the bath to play with, and mom's
Take
like running
yourself.
the bath, but the toddler like wants to wants the dad to like hang out and be part of the whole time, the event in the bathtub. So the child will like take the cell phone, and as they're looking at their dad, they're running past them. Okay, daddy, and they're running to the bath. Wait a second. That child knows that cell phone can't go in the tub, but that child really knows, oh, I'm going to get my father's attention, my father's physical attention. They manipulate in a cute way.
See that we have the title of your next book, The Toddler Code, How to Get What
Oh,
You Want in Life, right? By watching infants and toddlers. See?
that's great. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. Thank you for that. That's amazing. It, so funny because um it, I know a good handful of people that are older than childbearing years,
Mm,
uh, both men and women, and have never had children. And some of them are really good aunts of, their nieces and nephews, and uncles, or, whatever. But others are actually, I can tell you, they're afraid to be around babies
mm,
and toddlers. They're like, oh, you know, and they'll tell themselves and they'll say out loud, yeah, children make me crazy or nervous or whatever. Is it that they make you crazy or nervous, or you don't know anything about children? Or is it really that you fear maybe learning something about something that is very innate, something that's maybe within yourself that you really still need to discover? It's so funny we're having this conversation because I've never really discussed how study children, study babies and toddlers.
yeah,
By the time they're past toddler, by the way, don't study them. They've already been conditioned, you
right.
know. But I'm really talking about from infant to maybe 1.5, 2, you know, even like children, like even when they get older, to an extent, you still learn from them. Have you ever like walked in a room with a young child, and let's say, I don't know, I'm just making something up hypothetically. Let's say, uh, um, I'm having a bad hair day or something. I
Never.
wake up and I'm embarrassed to be around people first thing in the morning, the way my hair looks. So I put on like, like a cap or like a hat or something, and I'm pouring coffee. There's nothing like a young kid saying, "Why are you wearing a hat?"
Right. Right.
I mean, they're
Their,
so
their
in tune,
observation
man.
is right
There's
there.
exactly. It's like when a young child, a toddler sees a person, let's say they're with mommy or daddy, and they're at a grocery store, and the person that's in line with them, maybe behind them or in front of them, has a cane or a wheelchair or is in a wheelchair. The little young child will say, "Mommy, why is that man in a chair?"
Right.
And then the mother will say, "Shh, quiet. That's not the answer. The answer is address it." Well, you know, you could do one of two things. Do you want to ask him? Or, well, mommy will tell you later. You have to kind of feel out the situation.
Mhm.
Is this person resentful in the chair? But it's not like, don't shush them, because they see a very valid observation that they are uniquely different than the child is,
All right.
right? and you could have a beautiful conversation in the car afterward. The reason why that person's in the chair is because they're disabled. What does that mean? Well, they're unable to walk like you or I. Why? Well, I'm not sure. It could be a various reasons. Like what? This is called a conversation. Don't shut down your children. Otherwise, they never learn to come to look at things through the heart, through love.
Yeah. In both of the examples with the hat and the wheelchair, you bring up you connect an interesting point, which is that the children are asking the questions because they're curious. And most
Yes.
adults have lost their curiosity. And why we've lost our curiosity, like you're saying, as one of the choices, if you shush the child about the wheelchair, or you say, if I came to your house, to Aunt Lily's house with my infants, younger son, and you had your hat on because you're doing our coffee and you just got up, and I would say, don't be rude to Aunt Lily.
Yes,
We're
because
shutting down their curiosity. So
right.
they're learning a behavior that is a programming of being shut down to curiosity because they get shut down when they're curious younger. And we have to stay
Ex-
curious.
exactly. Because then what are you teaching? And perfect example, because don't be rude. What are you now teaching your child? That being curious
Just be
is being rude. And what does even that mean? Being
right.
curious is being like disrespectful to another, is being curious, being uh doing something wrong to yourself or wanting to learn something. Like there's a whole, a plethora of things that suggests when you shut down your child with
Right.
some kind of silly conditioned reason that you believe to be true. And now
Mhm.
you're teaching it to your child. So now everyone walks around. Don't look at someone or they're going to, or don't look at someone or, you know what I mean? Um, and it's, again, doesn't that wrap around teaching your child how to be fearful?
Yeah. You made a comment about or posed a question about why are there some adults who don't want to be around children? This is how we got on this piece of conversation. And that there's a quote in your book that says, peace is their harmonious matrimony between oneself and one's inner child. So these people who don't like the children are not at peace because the child represents is an outer manifestation maybe of their inner child, and they haven't come to terms with that, or they
Yes.
acted away.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I forgot I wrote that. So true. I have to say that was a good one.
See, that's what happens when you read the book twice.
Yes,
Remember the good
I
things.
really appreciate that. And it's interesting because I'll go through my book as well sometimes and I say, wow, I totally wrote this and I mean this wholeheartedly. So much of that book was written really through spirit
Yes.
that many times I went back to edit and I'm like the next day, let me go back because that was my system. Let me go back to what I wrote yesterday because I used to write like 8 hours a day. And I looked as if I wasn't there when I was writing. I said, wow, okay, there's nothing to change here. Maybe a grammar thing, maybe like a period, whatever. But I was like, that was really a very spiritual experience. Just writing, just whatever was coming out through spirit, right out through my fingers on my laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in the beginning of the book, you talked about how you wrote the book for 3 years in your head,
Mhm.
but then you had a life-changing awakening and you were able to actually write it. What was
Mhm.
that awakening, and how did that trigger from the head to the page?
Good question. That awakening was almost an aha moment. Okay, so here you are now. You've basically lost everything.
Yeah.
You can go off the deep end and, whatever, go on prescription drugs or become a raging alcoholic or just hate the world and be a hermit. Or you can write that book that's been inside your head in such a way that would be loving and giving and forthcoming of really rich spiritual undertones that would help other people who maybe don't have a voice uh, use their life situation to leverage it to a harmonious place. And that was when I sat and I said, now is the time. If not now, when?
Yeah. You had a lot of the the book spells out a lot of trauma with, you know, divorce and alcoholism with parent and spousal abuse. Different things are in the book, and but you always bounce back. And I was thinking of like the phoenix that crashes and burns to fire but always is reborn. But actually, you give a quote in your book about flowers that were sent to the house, and the quote was, "You can kill a lily, Sanders, but it will always but she will always come back to life. You can kill a lily, but it will always come back to life." And that is so apropos for both the name and a more beautiful representation of the death and rebirth kind of cycle. Can you tell the story about those flowers? And
Yeah, it is apropos. And that's why I said, let me just put this in because it's stuck in my head,
yeah,
So what happened was the story behind that, and the reason I brought it up, it was just a story about how at a young adult age, I had experienced that first hate from a first love. And many of us have experienced that, right? And so it was my first love. Mind you, for those of you that haven't read my book, but may, I I was basically I people I slept with is people that I was either engaged to or married. Meaning I had a very sheltered, like I really didn't sleep around sexually, and that's the way I was raised. So this was my first love. This was the first person and only person I had ever slept with in my entire life. For a young girl, that's impressionable. For a young girl, it's different than a guy. Guys are wired different than girls. And so that said, um, it was a very, um, it was it was like an intimate feeling about this relationship that I thought, oh, I could never live without this person, right? I think I was about 23. And so we got engaged, and fast forward, he for some odd reason he broke up the engagement. Just wanted to slow things down. There was really no excuse. So I, of course, thought there's something's up. And so I wound up going to a place of business that we were both doing. We were floral designers. And I walked in and there was this another girl with some little baby like crawling around. It wasn't his, but he was having an affair. So that broke my heart. And it broke my heart to like a million, what felt like a million pieces, right? And I picked myself up. I was really proud of myself. I picked myself up and I went and I got a job in the city. I was working in the garment district and I was auditioning. I was back to auditions as a dancer and an actress. And I was really on my way. I was taking classes and I was really honing my craft. And then I was bringing in money working in this day job in the city, right? And everything that I manifested came true, by the way, with this. And then lo and behold, this guy like tries to like contact me, comes back into my life or something. And just in a way where he was just still in contact a little bit. So we were just chatting a little bit. And these days there were no texts. I'm dating
right.
myself. So I was like, oh yeah. We were talking on the phone. I says, I was dating some guy also that was working in the city. I met him on the train or whatever. He was in my town. And I said, can you believe, I said, can you believe like, like I broke up with him or something, and he like, or no, I don't remember. I had a conversation with him about something, and he was just like, he just ghosted me or something, I don't know, whatever. And I was like, that's like ridiculous, right? So he sends, because he was still in floral
Mhm.
designing. I don't even know how he got this guy's address.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't get it from me. I, I, and he sends a bouquet of dead flowers to this guy with a note on it that says, "You can kill a lily, but she'll always come back to life." And it was really his way. I'm thinking that note was really for me.
Yeah, he was apologizing.
Yes. He was realizing that, you know, he thought I was going to fall apart. He goes, but clearly she is off and doing her thing. She's off and on her way. She's gotten over me, you know. And yeah, apropos. And you want to know what's really, really funny, Mike?
Yeah.
Fast forward a couple of decades after that, 2030. Yeah, I was in my 40s. I started really going on a spiritual path and studying things. And I said, wow, my name is interesting because and it's, by the way, it's not short for anything. It's lily like the flower.
Mm.
Mike, when you look at lilies, who that grow actually in the water, the lily pad, lilies, lily pads, they're not rooted. They're rooted in like mud,
Mm.
and for some reason other than the creator, they always have that beautiful lotus flower,
Yeah.
and they're rooted in mud, which isn't, it was really interesting. It's the only flower, as far as I know, and I've researched, that can keep flowering
Yeah, the lotus. Hmm.
through mud.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, yeah, I had a muddy past. So that's apropos too.
Yeah. There was an interesting, things show up when we're ready to see them, even though they may have been there for a long time. And you talk about being in the closet at home, and when you get out one time and the sun is shining, you can see something your sister wrote on the
Oh,
closet
yes.
wall. Can you share that story?
Yeah. It was a bad time at home. My father was very violent. And I will put this out there so that I can bust a myth right now. My father was not an alcoholic.
Mm.
Didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't curse. He was actually known to be, this quote unquote man of God, right? He's very violent. And of course, he had a story, right? And so it didn't start with him. Again, back to that whole beginning. Everybody comes from something.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a very volatile, traumatizing time at home. And I was the youngest of three other siblings. And one of my siblings, we shared a bedroom, the two girls, me and my sister. And she's 4.5 years older than me. And I remember going into the closet just to close my ears and trying to close my mind from what was going on outside downstairs in the house. And I was just like in that closet. And when I opened the door, the light comes in, right? Those days we didn't have lights in closets, you guys, not in my house anyway. You open the door, it's ajar, so enough of the light is kind of beaming in. And I looked on the side of, like, the inside of the wall in the closet, and it said, "Dear God, please help this family." I recall really just weeping, and at the same time feeling some kind of like a unified strength that, okay, it's not just me that is seeking some kind of change, and whatever, peace, peace, basically, in the household. But so maybe if enough of us are praying that same thing, maybe, just maybe, there'll be peace. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a very sad time. Hmm.
Yeah.
And it's so weird that I remembered that all these years. I remember the writing, and right inside my brain, I could still see it.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to look back and think like, wow, how long has this been going on? And the volatile household, and that someone else, i.e. your sister, also took refuge in the closet
Hmm. Yeah,
and was like, right? I mean, have you spoken to her about that incident or
yeah.
since then?
It's so interesting. She didn't talk to me for a while when she
Hmm.
was really upset with me. And so she doesn't want to talk about it. And that's okay. It's her journey.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's her
her journey.
journey. Yeah. So she doesn't discuss. I'm happy to discuss it anytime. I honestly, interesting question, Mike, because I feel like it would be very healing
Yeah,
to discuss that, no doubt. And in a positive way,
right.
and in a way of connectedness, because no matter which way you look at it, even if you don't, um, well, how do I put this? I have my own podcast, and I had some two sisters on, and they're very close, and they'd been through a slew of adversity. They just suffered so much loss in their family and
Mhm.
tragedy, and they remained so close. And I says, I'm really in awe of you too, for this closeness. What would you say to sisters that don't have that closeness? And one of them said, you know, the thing is, you have a history together, and it's the only other person in the world that you can say has that with you.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, really took me back. I'm like, wow, she's so right. And I think that's kind of where, instead of getting angry, oh, we don't want people to know this or that, it should really bring you together where, um, let's just see that we had that history together and acknowledge that and have that awareness, and really understand that that's what makes us so special as siblings.
Hmm.
And uh you know we can expand from that, no matter what. And because then, no matter what happens in life, and what tragedies you go through, you always have that connection. Having said that, if that doesn't occur in someone that you're a, a blood relative, a blood sibling, you can always find an old friend or someone that you've been raised with, like from a young age, that you could really connect with, or maybe someone that you shared a dorm room with, or whatever that may be. You can always find someone that has shared that same like time frame and experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've never, yeah. So in answer, she doesn't like to talk about it. And again, that's okay. It's her journey, you know. And the book, quite frankly, it was really to help other people um uh, feel like they're not alone in things.
Right. I think you say something like that in the book about pain that and suffering. Like you're not the only one who's pain and suffering. You don't own pain and suffering. And I'm
Exactly.
paraphrasing. It's like every single person ever who was alive since the beginning of time has had experienced pain and suffering. You're not alone. And many of them have had the same pain and suffering with a loved one or a job or a loss, not the same people, but the same, basically the same setup, the same concept, the same situation. It's just you
Yeah.
switch out names and times, but we have that. And I think that's why AA meetings and everybody there has been an alcoholic for some reason and there's a bonding over that. You're not alone. You're not the only one drinking away their problems. And
Yes.
people who've been in Vietnam or Iraq or any of the wars, it's like other people suffered this with me. I'm not alone in my PTSD. uh,
Yes.
Abused relationships. Your podcast helps talk through abusive relationships and um, codependency and human trafficking, all different horrible things that you advocate against or for the better side of. Uh,
Yeah.
it's an experience that
And
brings
just
people together. Yeah,
exactly, right? Like beyond the current situation, that's the name of it.
right.
So like it's anyone that how you've gotten beyond a current situation. And even like on the lighter side, um, I had Vinny on, right? Vinny
Yeah,
Pastori, and and I came right out and I asked him, so James Galdolfino dies suddenly. Now what? The show closed. Like, now
right,
what? What did you do? And he was like, yeah, he goes, it was an interesting time because,
right.
you know, that's, that is a life situation,
It is.
you know, and it's a perfect example. And of course, he just keeps working.
Yeah,
And that's why he was just a great guest for my show. And it's a perfect example of, and I say this all the time, I do say it in truth to triumph. Nothing is forever and everything is for a while.
yeah. Nice.
And it's something that I remind myself of. And it's something that when I feel led to just say those words to someone, just so that they feel like a sense of peace while they're going through something difficult, I find it to those words to be very comforting and true,
Yeah,
because nothing does last forever and everything is just for a while,
yeah.
and it's so funny because when you talk about the present moment, there's always those people, especially trolls, right? Social
Oh my
media. I don't spend a lot of time on social media, truth be told, but I will get people that even when I was on my radio tour, the radio host oddly was like, well, even the present moment ends. And I go, yeah, that's the beauty of it.
Right. There's a new president.
Dur. I'm like, I'm
Sure.
like,
You say "der."
Mike, I'm like, yeah, I said, Dur. No, I didn't say that to him. But
No,
I
it's
said, yeah,
funny.
but that's the beauty of it because everyone's moment isn't perfect. So that's the beauty of the present moment. That ends too, you
Right.
know? And I'm like saying to myself, if you want to go, I'll go with you about the present moment. It's not the be all and end all, but that's the beauty of it,
And it's a lot
right?
better than wearing a backpack and a duffel bag full of your past trauma, right? If you can live in the present
Oh,
moment, you're not reliving the past and relitigating it every moment of your life and every breath because you haven't let it go.
it's true. It's look, I say this all the time, but like you can you can get to like when you think about a situation that you're in and it's dark, you're never going to get out of this, right? And you're thinking, all right, all I know is I have to get to point Z, and right now I'm at B, let's say. You could do that peacefully and get to the same darn point, but get there through that journey, through that life situation in a peace with a peaceful heart and a clear mind, or you can go suffering the whole way by carrying all that baggage. And that baggage is heavy, man. I know. But if you just, you know, drop the baggage. If you can't drop it right away, okay. Put little wheels on it, drag it a little bit, but realize that, but then realize if I just left the bags there, I would still be able to walk to point Z, but I wouldn't have all the weight. So just do it. And, and you realize that after you've carried the baggage to Z and thought, well, that was stupid. I could have left the bags back there because I'm not using them anyway.
Right.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like what you said almost reminds me of some of the biggest issues in relationship when I coaching someone on a relationship is like half of the time you'll have someone say, are you still talking about that? It's like, what? Like, when are you going to let it go? Those are some of the those are some of the biggest, really the biggest challenges in relationships is just let it go. So what? I always say two things. Who cares? I
Right.
mean, who cares? Like, and I don't mean that in an unloving way, but who cares what happened 10 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago? Just like be aware and then like change the way you do it the next time. That's all.
Sure.
Love, forgive, accept, move on. Don't make a habit of it. But then when you make a habit of it, then you wind up alone. Then you have a new
Right.
lesson to learn. Then you have a new lesson to learn, right? Oh, shoulda, would have, could have. Yeah.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah.
That's right. Got the
Right?
T-shirt. Yeah. I think you talk about that in terms of, divorce. I think that's when I remember the statement coming up that if something about, no matter the circumstance, if I just let everything accepted the nonsense, I'd be at the same place now without all that struggle. It's like
Oh,
accept it, let it go, and I'm still in the same place, but without all that hate, the struggle, the arguing, the nastiness, you know,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And there's so much in that. And I did say that in Truth to Triumph. It was during my divorce and all the different court appearances, and I could still feel it like it was yesterday, the way my heart used to like flutter. I could feel my heart pounding outside of my skin. Um, all
yeah.
of the anxiety and the nerves. And then I thought, when I was writing Truth to Triumph, I would have gotten to the same place, but I would have gotten there with peace if I just let it go and just really have love drive the wheel. Peace, for me, I use God, drive the wheel instead of fear and anxiety. And even, I hate to use this word, hope. Instead, if you're letting love or God drive the wheel uh, in trust, that even if you can't see tomorrow, just trust that everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. And that's the big thing for me about trust is one of the things I do say also in Truth to Triumph is, that, Mike, there's wisdom in uncertainty. And part of that wisdom is the knowing and the trusting that everything will be okay.
You make another statement in the book that echoes this perfectly. You say something like, and I'm going to mess it up, but you'll correct it. Something like, people should stop looking for light at the end of the tunnel and find the light in their heart. Right? It's like in this moment you can find light in your heart and let things go and be in the moment rather than waiting to see some light at the end of a tunnel down the road somewhere. I mean, I
Yes.
paraphrase that, but
No, that's
it
perfect. Yeah,
goes
people were always waiting to see that light at the end of the tunnel. People will even give you like, advice. Oh, well, don't worry, there'll be light at the end of the tunnel.
right.
Well, what if you realize that you are light and your only job, your only purpose here is to be aware that you are light and become more and more of that light. It's like I'm going to give you an analogy. I'm going to give you this analogy because as I'm looking to my left, I have like my wood burning stove and
Ooh.
when you put like a log in a fire, you know, most people will say, okay, put the log in the fire and it goes next to the other log because that log that is uh, aflame will light the other log and the other log and the other log. But what I would put to you is it's not that we need another light next to us that we take on someone's light. It's actually quite the opposite. And this is another spiritual myth bust. You already are light. So when you are that log and you start to go aflame, it's something that makes that flame happen, right? That makes it in light, whether you're using a bunch of sticks and paper or whatever it is. But the point is, innately, it will enlighten and light up and become more and more and more and more. And so it's not that we come here to find the light and then bring and enlighten other people. It's that we already are light. And it really encourages or invites other people to see that same light in them. And if you look at it through a Christian sense, or not even Christian, if you look, because I've had this conversation with Rabbi Yossi on my podcast, it's if you look at it through a spiritual sense, we're all connected. So I'm light, you're light. Just sometimes we can't see our light because we're so busy living our story from yesterday in a dark room. It's like when you walk into a dark room and like you're looking around, where's the light? Where's the light? Guess what? You had that light when you incarnated into this world. You had that light before you came into this world because you are light. I know that's deep, but
Love it. Well, when they look scientifically through different instruments at our brain, our mitochondria, our cells, they're all showing light. I mean, it's all light. We are light.
bingo,
Love and light.
bingo. I have the same conversation with Dr. Todd Ovakadis. Bingo.
Right.
Even the most, acclaimed scientists and doctors, they prove this scientifically.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful thing that science and spirituality, they're now starting to go parallel with each other, which is
Yes.
just so beautiful. So,
Mm-hmm.
so beautiful. And he's the first one. Like I'm actually in a group, an international, it's a small circle, an international group of like prayer warriors where we pray. Right now we're praying for this little baby in Israel. And there's scientists, doctors of science,
Right.
biological decoders, myself, because it's true. There is the energy of prayer in groups is in combined with science and, medical science and biological decoding and so on and so forth. It works together. It's not just one way or the highway. It's you're all part of the same. Again, we're all connected. And it's amazing to be part of something like this in just 2023 and get like just updates on the baby. It's just a beautiful thing. Intention is everything, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
everything that we do, it needs to be intentional if you want to manifest it.
Right.
Intention is everything, but behind that intention, again, we can have an adverse, I'm going to say negative or unloving intention,
Mm-hmm.
or we can choose to have a very positive, harmonious, loving intention. Of course, the latter is the one that I encourage everyone, to do, so that we can really raise the vibration of love on the earth. I mean, that's, again, we're light, so let's be light.
Right. There's no dark switch in a room. There's only a light switch. So you can't turn on darkness. All you can do is dispel it by turning on the light.
I love that.
Huh?
I'm going to write that down
There
during the
you go.
playback. I love that. There's no
There's a switch to
dark
turn on the
switch.
light. and dispel the darkness, but there's no switch to turn on darkness. It's not natural. It's something that overcomes us, but it's not natural, that darkness.
Yeah.
Darkness can't live in light.
Darkness can't live in light. You know what? Yeah. I think, what is it? Marianne Williamson says, like, the opposite of fear is love, right? And darkness can't live in light. And I say love can't digest fear. Like, it just can't.
Right,
Love can't digest hate either. It just
right.
doesn't, it can't house it. It just, it's like when there's something going on in my house now, it's like, I never have hate in my house.
Yeah,
Like never. I, I just, the vibration won't even tolerate it. Forget about me even consciously, I don't even need to say anything. It just doesn't
right.
happen. And it's funny because when you're talking about, the darkness, just yesterday, was having a very, very limited, quick conversation with, with my significant other. And he said, he was asking me about, I don't know, some movies. I can't believe you didn't really like those trilogies, because I told him in the past it wasn't really my jam. And he was like, oh, I'm so surprised, because I like very interesting, odd stuff. And I said, yeah. I said, well, I'm going to tell you why I never got into that. And of course, I'm not going to say
Yeah,
the film, but I said, I didn't like the cinematography. He goes, well, what do you mean? I said, it was shot like the whole film was very dark,
mm,
and I couldn't tolerate it. In fact, I remember falling asleep on the second trilogy, like the second movie. I fell asleep in the theater with my nephews next to me. I was like, it
right,
was just, I don't, um me, this is my personal thing. I don't like to watch something that's shot like where it's too dark for the entire time.
right.
Also, there's two kind of things, like the new Batmans. Yeah, they're great storylines. They're all sequels, but the recent ones are shot very dark, right? But there's another film though where the trilogy, everything's dark from the beginning. And not that the writing isn't brilliant, because it is. The acting is brilliant of this
Yeah,
trilogy that he was talking about, but the darkness bothered me, and I wasn't drawn to it. You
yeah,
know, yeah,
understand.
yeah, and it could be. I don't know, um, and I think the underlying message was also a little dark. So there's some things within me that I can't digest like that way. It doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel icky.
Yeah, I used to like when I was a teenager watching violent films, films with a lot of fighting and shooting and stabbing, whatever, they're movies, but I can't watch
Yeah.
them. I don't enjoy them, you know,
You don't enjoy them now.
I don't
It's
enjoy them
interesting how you're like,
now. Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
that's like an
and
expansion. It's a good awareness too, of
yeah.
self-awareness for yourself.
Mhm.
Interesting.
And I can't at all watch any television show or movie where women are being abused, or children or women and children are held captive. It
Yeah.
revolts me. Why would I sit there on something that's not real and make myself sit through that and those emotions? I just can't. I don't like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really get that, because
Even
it
if
doesn't
there's a
make you
happy
feel
ending.
good.
Yeah. And I don't want to have those feelings vibrating inside my body of
Mm-hmm.
stress, of being a prisoner, of being abused, and watching that. And I
Mm-hmm.
just don't want that in my body. And I don't want that for anybody to experience in real life. So why support it even in a film,
Yeah.
or show? I mean, that's just me. Yeah.
That's just you. And I think that's the beauty of everyone. Everyone, like, they're different writers, right?
Yeah.
And some people, like, they're like, oh, they like to write things that bring up dark subjects. Um, but they don't bring the light out in it. So,
Right. Right.
right. It's
Right.
almost like if I wrote my book, Truth to Triumph, and like it was like,
If
you
you took
know,
out all the light, it wouldn't be a good story. It would be stressful.
yeah. if
But
it
there's a
was
lot
like,
of
yeah,
light in
it's a lot of light in there and a lot of lesson learning and a lot of aha moments. And the thing is, like, it's not, again, it wasn't a story about like a victim, and not even a story about a survivor, but
there.
really just a book that you can say, oh, well, if she went through that and that was the way she did it, well, then certainly I'm not alone. And, I could, do something myself. Even if someone's just going through a divorce, it's a pretty cool, book to
Yeah,
read. Or if you're contemplating divorce, you might think twice. Like,
right,
you know.
right.
But
Divorce is hard, I've been there. It's
yeah,
with children, it's even harder.
it's
Yeah,
harder. You brought up something before that you know, that I had talked about in Truth to Triumph about, um getting to a place of peace instead of, doing like what I did and suffering the whole way. It's not to neglect that if you're suffering the whole way, don't think for a moment that your child isn't.
right,
And your child is seeing or feeling things that even maybe you don't say or you don't realize that they're feeling. And it's now they have a journey through it, through their perspective and their, those are the things that the number one thing you need to do is always, always keep your focus on your child. And that'll even help you heal.
oh, for sure. And to keep in mind that your spouse that you're divorcing is also suffering, and
Abs-
that
Absolutely.
comes back to your point about loving everyone,
Exactly.
even though it seems
Exactly.
impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because, you know, love is quantum. It's not an emotion. Most people think love is an
mm,
emotion. And I always challenge that love is not an emotion. Love is. It's the essence of what we're made up of. It is that light. It's just quantum. It's everywhere. Right.
yeah,
Um, the opposite of love is everywhere too. But and I know that love is the strongest force. So no contest.
no contest.
You ever travel, Mike, and like you have this sense of peace where, I'm just going to bring a carry on.
Yeah, right.
Like, think about it. It's the same thing with life.
Yeah,
Like, how much, or you move, and like I moved from like this big house to this little apartment in the city, right? And it's like, how much do I really need?
right.
I'm just purging everything. And the feeling that comes from that is also a very emotionally gratifying feeling.
Mhm,
And if you're really suffering by letting go of things, like the Christmas ornaments from when your child was young,
right,
I hate to sound so insensitive, but in the large scoop of things, here come those two words. So what? Who cares? So what? It's an ornament. And you know what? If you didn't let go of it, how do you not know that 10 years from now your house is going to get flooded by Sandy? You're like stop investing
right.
in these things of the, I'm going to say, tangible external world. Do we like nice things? Of course. If I didn't have good sound, would we have a really good show together here today? Probably not. But I'm not going to worry about it.
Right.
If something goes wrong here, and we get disconnected, okay, take it from that moment, see what we could do to get it back. Like, it's not, same thing with life. Look, you're moving into a 400 square foot apartment. You're going to have to get rid of some stuff, dude.
Yeah, for sure. For
Right?
sure.
And you're going to have to get over it because obviously that stuff didn't give you a good life anyway. Think about
Right.
it. What did that
Yeah,
stuff get you?
right.
In the Italian world, it got you GOTS.
I got you guts.
Vinny would like that one. Forget
Yeah,
about it. Forget about it.
forget about it. Oh my gosh. my Italian grandmother had the plastic on the couch, that she bought the couch and had the plastic covering on it. And it's like, why don't you take off the plastic? I mean, it was clear. You see through it.
Of course.
She'd say, well, then the couch will get dirty. I said, well,
Yeah.
well, who cares if you could buy any couch you want if it's going to have plastic on it. Like, it's
Oh
not
my God.
comfortable with the plastic. It makes noise. You're not actually enjoying the couch, like
Oh,
it's
I
just
remember
funny.
sitting on my aunt's like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I was like a little kid, I'm like, and I remember my legs like sticking to the
Stuck to it.
plastic, on
Right.
like some summer hot day. And I'm like, oh
Right.
my goodness, really? Or
I know. It's
how
insane.
about I had a girlfriend growing up, loved her. She was like my bestest friend.
Oh,
And yeah, and I'd go to her house. And it was always a treat to go to someone else's house, right?
right.
And I remember her saying, don't go in that room. The carpeting
Oh,
was like pristine, and you could see the lines with
from
the
the
vacuum
vacuum.
cleaner, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so we were like, we were kids, and we wanted to, like, instead of going around this whole way to get out the back, we said, well, we went through that room. And I remember we walked backwards and we were whooshing the top of the pile of the carpet to try and take our footprints
Got the
off, right?
footprints.
Yeah, yeah. So we thought, we were like, oh,
That's so
we
cool.
yeah. And then her mother came home and goes, who was in the living room? We were like, oh,
Right. Those are funny stories, but it leads you to the question of, like, why do you have carpet in a living room, that because you have that carpet, no one could go in the living room?
I
I
mean,
mean, it's
really,
insane.
really, seriously, it was the most beautiful plush carpet.
You just
It
want to
was this,
roll in it.
yeah, I remember. And I remember being like this really very, very peaceful, palish green color. And I was like, yeah, like, what's the point?
Right.
Yeah, what's the point? So funny.
Mhm.
Yeah.
My
I
God.
I totally am all on board with respecting the home. Don't get me wrong. We would have never done that with our shoes on. Just so everyone
Right.
listening is
Right.
can understand,
You're not
when
a
you walk
vandal.
in, exactly. When
No
you walk
shoes.
in my home, people drop their shoes,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, I don't know. I For some reason I have this Japanese culture going on
We
in
have
my
it too.
house, but
We have it too.
but it it it's just like keeping the outside dirt out, fine,
Right.
and not so much even the dirt from like your garden. It's
No.
more about, when you're, the
Yeah.
grease from the cars, the dirt from humans. I
People
mean,
spitting on the
basically,
sidewalk in their gum
people
and you're
spinning
stepping
on,
on it, and it's just
yeah,
gross. You don't have to keep cleaning your house.
exactly. And you're like, oh, they just came off the train from New York, from
Right.
Manhattan,
Right.
and I'm like,
Right.
I hope this person takes their shoes off. I hope they see the hint with the shoes by the front door.
Right. Right.
I think as you get older, one of the things that I love to remind, especially, I'm generalizing, but women that are mothers and career women and wives, they seem to think that the superpower is in multitasking. And I
Mm.
will tell you right here, multitasking is failing at many things at the same time. You show me one person that is a super multitasker that has super accomplish something in everything that they're
Right.
multitasking with. Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen. When you're writing, you publish a book. When you've not decided to make the decision to not go into the workforce and be a full-time mom, you are focused on full-time mommy.
Right.
That even means that you even compartmentalize probably your relationship during that first season with your partner,
Right.
because you need sleep. That baby's waking up all night. Get the heck out of here.
Right.
I gotta sleep. Like,
Right.
it's just being really true and real to what the major focus is on in your life at that time. It's not forever.
Yeah.
It's just a season. you know I always say, like, go for that one thing. There's this great book, Mike. I think it's called The One Thing. It's kind of a plug from like years ago. But really, it's like, what's the one thing that I can do today, such that by doing it everything else will become not as important and maybe even not necessary at all. And that keeps you focused. So you don't want to start your day or the night before, write a big list.
Mm-hmm.
You're setting yourself up to fail, you know, or you're setting yourself up to do some of the things on that list and not complete everything on that list.
Right.
That's, but if you know that, okay, I'm gonna flesh out, this chapter of or flesh out the characters in my film today. Okay. So then maybe you're not cooking dinner that night. So
Right.
what?
Right.
Like that's really intentional and focused and driven. That really, really helps you manifest this. You're not going to, and there, of course, there's a communication behind that because your partner would know, you know, oh, okay, so what's going on for you today? Okay, so if you know each other, he or she already knows, oh, we're probably going to do takeout, or maybe I'll cook something, or maybe I'll offer to put some burgers on the grill. It's a working relationship, right?
Yeah. It has to
Yeah,
be.
it has to
There's no
be.
point in it.
There's no point in it because then when you have adverse things thrown in, as you know, Mike, there's things you have to focus on and put other things aside,
Yeah.
right? Emergencies,
Yeah.
you know, uh,
Needs change and they come and go, and different things are in focus on different days. It has to be.
it has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just the way, um, just the way life situations cycle through our day,
Mm-hmm.
moment to moment, hour to hour, day to day, right? Season to season.
Right.
Yeah. And I could look back. Some people say, oh, well, if you didn't have, that horrible, whatever, relationship, or that if you didn't have that situation, like, oh, well, just think about it. It was kind of a blessing in disguise because, you have a child or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I would have had a child anyway. Like
Right. Right.
I'm like, no, I could have navigated through that in a better way. That's the whole point of my book.
Right.
You could, it's not like fate. I don't believe in fate. But let me
Right.
just put that out there in this conversation. That's a bunch of baloney. I
Yeah.
mean, I would never tell someone, well, just throw a bunch of things up on the wall and just see what sticks. And maybe that's it. And leave the rest to fate. No, 1,000 times no. Don't leave it up to fate. Again, instruct the universe
Right.
in what is and what you want, what you desire. And then you have to be intentional. But if you don't first know what you want, what you desire, and you have to put intention behind it, that's everything. If you're not intentional, then maybe you are asking for, the laws of bad luck to come your way,
Right. And I think
right?
when people also say, like you're saying about fate, when people and it not being real, you know, when people also say things like, well, it happened for a reason, then
Hate that
and it's
saying.
like the reason is because you had your mind focused on a negative outcome, or you were expecting a negative outcome. That's the
Oh,
reason. If your manifestation were all positive, light and love, and expecting that it's already there and it's going to present itself, and you're being kind and loving to as many people as you possibly can in every moment, and not bringing your luggage with you. And all this is super hard to do, but then those negative things wouldn't be happening, and those traumas wouldn't be happening, right? So,
perfectly put. Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
don't
I,
think that
I
everything
always hated that
lesson
saying.
other than
Everything
lesson
happens
of,
for me.
yeah, other than your own doing, really,
Yeah.
you know.
And you know what, Mike? That's a hard nut
That's
to chew on for most of us because I will tell you this is a great thing that you just brought up and perfect way of putting it. I remember many years ago when I was in the thick of adversity and um someone saying something to the effect of, I think, kind of what I brought up before about, God doesn't give you more than you can handle, and things happen for a reason, right? All those things. But the whole thing is, when someone said to me once, and it was not her personally, it was her book. So when I was reading her book, this was in 1980, I want to say 1986, 87. It was Louise L. Hay.
Mhm.
And of course, what
Proper.
great teachings, right?
Yeah.
She said, we choose the life that we come into. We
Right.
choose the parents that the mother we come in. I was like, I was really confused. I was like, that's just, I don't know. I guess I'll read this with an open mind, but, like,
Right.
you
I
know,
mean, it's
I
so off
was
the grid of what we are taught to
exa-
think, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah. I'm like 27 years old. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know, like, so I'm like, okay. So I'm reading on. By the way, you guys listening, you're going to come to that place when you read maybe one or two or different books where like you're like not aligning. I encourage everyone, just keep reading through the book. Okay.
Mhm.
So whatever book, if it's a spiritual, if it's something that is really gonna, it may just expand your horizon, just saying. Anyway, so I'm reading this book further, and I never forgot that, and I also never understood it in a way that I felt accepting of it, Mike, because I thought, well, that's really just ridiculous, because that's like saying, I chose to be in this household with a violent father. I chose to be this, I chose to be that. And, my son chose to come through this world in, this kind of situation. Like all of these years later, decades, Mike. And I bring it up to one of my guests on my podcast, not doctor, Rabbi Yossi. And I asked him, I confronted him with it, as if, I was being consulted by a rabbi. I said, what are your thoughts on that? Because I still, all of these years later, I have a hard time like wrapping my head around the fact that I chose this. And he said, when we're incarnated into this earth, he's a very spiritual rabbi, by the way. He's the most connected man that I know, almost connected, almost that I know. I know a few, and that to me, he's like a guru. He said, when we come in from spirit, first of all, we're asked if we want to come into this, incarnate into this earth. I said, okay. He said, and we make the decision whether we're going to do it or not. And it's a very painful process to go from spirit into flesh. And I'm like, okay. And he said, and you do know there is the sense of where you're going, whose womb you're going through, right? Incarnating through. But you don't know the situation that it involves, that's surrounding it. You don't know. You don't know what happens after that. You only know that you're going through this person, and you've made the decision to do that. And it's a very painful process. And that helped me because, and it also helped me understand that our perspective from a spiritual sense is much different than what we experience in the human world, and as a human being of the flesh. Which ironically, and I was speaking to a rabbi, ironically, it really reminded me of, oh, that's like Christ, who like came from. And then I'm thinking of all of the things that I was reading with the Hebrew dictionary and the Greek dictionary, the American dictionary, the Bible. I'm like, how like we go from flesh into spirit and spirit into flesh and he rose again. It's like it all connects. It's like it's so like to me enlightening to know that we're so much more than this body that houses the soul. So much more. We just forgot in the throes of living in this human world as a human being in the flesh.
Mhm. If we believe if that our soul continues on or our consciousness continues on after death, then that means it's like matter in physics. Say matter can't be destroyed, right, or created. It's just changes form.
Yeah.
And if we're in spirit or in consciousness before we get here, then of course we're choosing to come here versus staying up in the, I don't know, universe somewhere or the heavens somewhere, whatever word you want to
Yeah.
describe. And I've heard
Yeah.
from other spiritual teachers that we choose the parents and the life that we're coming into because we want to have experience in this physical three-dimensional reality that you don't have when you're in spirit. A car accident, no legs, you're deaf, you were
Yes.
tortured, because it's expanding your consciousness and your awareness and your spirit overall. And our life is just a blip in time anyway. I mean, it's just like a blink of an eye. So what feels
Yeah.
like,
It's
forever for us is nothing. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. When people may not believe that many people believe you have one time around.
yeah,
And that may be true for that person. They may never ever come back onto the earth. But then there's people that believe differently. And it's been said that then you come back to finish or
right.
resolve something from a past life that you did not, resolve then or understand then or come into the light, become more light then in any kind of situation, right? It's like you ever go somewhere and you're like, wow, I feel like I've been here before.
Yeah,
And I'm not and not so much deja vu, but in a way we're like,
you feel home.
so yeah, yeah. Like it's weird. Like, or you look at like a picture, maybe some kind of printed photograph of something from like, I don't know, a couple of generations ago in a different country that you've never visited. And you look at it and you say, I feel like I've been there. Like,
Right, right.
well,
Those are those memories that are in our genes. We're pulling all the memories of everyone I mean, of everyone that's been in our family line, right? Every
good
mother, father,
point.
their
Yeah.
mother, father, their mother, father, their mother, father, their mother, father, and all the lives and experiences they have, which is why people, I think, live through chronic pain, or they're born with ADD or anxiety, or they've got, you know, whatever. It's all in that epigenetic code that can be turned on or off. And it's the memories of everybody's, you know, everybody's DNA that's in your body, from you, your parents, your grandparents, great great grandparents, their parents, their grandparents, because it's that same genetic code
Yeah.
moving through time. So there's a lot of stuff in there that you're born with, or ideas you have, or anxieties or fears that are not rational, but they're embedded in the code. So you need to somehow clean that out. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of that, somehow of course, it's very timely and divine that you would mention this because uh, the doctor that I'm kind of partnered with in this integrated prayer and science and medical
Hmm.
uh, healing. Uh, I'm actually going to be joining in 2024. I'm going to be learning deeply and actually it's going to be a journey, but also certifying to do biological decoding because
Wow,
it's
that's
been
cool.
yeah, it's been a huge curiosity for me and then and there's a team of people from dentistry decoding to all kinds of biological decoding that now it's further than an interest. It's something that I'd like to learn and perfect and get certified for self-healing,
Yeah.
and to add that to my practice. And, you know, there's just so many answers
There
in
is.
that realm of things of, why we get illnesses and diseases and all kinds of things. And it's not just emotional. It's emotional, cognitive, and physical. And it's not just in this life. Like, you hit it right on the nose. It's DNA decoding. It's totally DNA decoding. And much of it is ancestral.
Right.
So when we come in, incarnate into this world, it's like we come with
Talk about baggage.
that. Talk about baggage. This is great. Wow. But you want to talk about, so you know what? And to your point, Mike, if talk about baggage. So everyone listening, you guys listen up. If you think about it this deeply, you don't have time and physical muscle to hold on to this physical baggage, because
Right.
there's so much stuff that you've got waiting for you to really look at and really like learn from and heal from. And to me, it's inspiring. It's inspiring to let go of this baggage here that you're putting you into suffering mode, because there's so many other great things that you can just add to your tool belt, so to speak, or your toolkit to really, really, hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So let
Yeah.
me ask you one last question. You've been so generous with your time today, and I don't want to steal your whole afternoon. And it's not an easy one, but one that you're so well equipped to answer is, how can we co-create a new humanity?
Mm, good question. The way that we can co-create a new humanity is by each one of us taking the responsibility to love. First, love yourself, to be aware that you are that light and love, right? To connect and know that you have that connection with intuition. So it's kind of body, mind, and being. You can you don't have to look at it in a religious sense, but you can if you want. But body, mind, and being is really, your connected, inside, outside, everything about you is connected, right? With the one mind and universe, or God and love. And so in knowing that, and in actually exercising that shared compassion that we talked about at the top of the podcast, we can co-create together a higher vibration of love on the earth. This and a newer humanity, a newer sense of love and vibration on this earth. Right. Today, we can only talk about Earth. We're not living on Mars yet. And who knows? But one moment at a time, one human at a time, one culture at a time, one country at a time, however, simultaneously, which is why prayer works, right? Where two or more come together, it should be done. It's why intention works together. So even if you're doing something intentionally to create something that is more serving yourself, that same methodology, if you will, or that same way, you would co-create by intentionally, as in human body, mind, and being, intentionally around the world, you can co-create a new humanity.
Wonderful. It's such a pleasure to speak with you and have this time with you, Lily. The
Thank you
book
so
is
much.
Truth to Triumph, and her podcast on Spotify is Beyond the Current Situation. And links for those and more will be in our show notes.